Hello everyone, Tactical Lich here, and welcome back to another tournament spotlight. Today we are doing things a little bit differently, as we are going to cast multiple replays in one video. Human Boy's Warpstone Cup is underway, and we're covering some of the best of threes from his tournament. Today we are casting battles between Shogunnik and MTK's Boina Roja. So first battle, Shogunnik going for Dwarfs versus Boina Roja going for Grand Cathay. Two box factions, but no artillery on the battlefield whatsoever other than the crane guns, but they count more as weapons teams. For the Dwarfs of Shogunnik, we have a front line of Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, going rather rushy here, with a second line of miners with blasting charges, trying to use them to clear out, grind through those Cathay armored infantry, and the blasting charge is really good against peasant spears, and of course, the newly nerfed Jade Warriors with less armor to protect them from explosions. The third line of the Dwarf formation is just a bunch of missiles really, a bunch of Crawlers mixed in with a couple Iron Drakes who did receive their range buff in recent patches. Further behind, two Slayer units, one of them the Doom Seekers, being an elite damage dealer. They can be a great force to punch through the Cathay melee defenses, while the Dragonback Slayers will be protecting the backline with their anti-large, leading the army Floric Ironbrow with a Rune of Speed for the, well, speed buffs and attack buffs, and also a Rune of Negation for the damage resistance. Grand Cathay player Boina Roja is going for a layered formation, front line of long spears, second line of Jade Warriors, third line of missiles with two Celestial Dragon crossbows and two Crane Gunners. Really good pick against the Dwarfs. This kind of long range sniper unit are really good at dealing with artillery with their precision fire. But then if there's no artillery like right here, they can just use their missile penetration to really work through the densely packed Dwarf formations like these Dwarf Warriors here. Thankfully, Floric Ironbrow dropped in a Rune of Negation for them, so they're just tanking that damage with that additional damage resistance for now. For the rest of the Cathay army, 4 units of Onyx Crowmen scattered across the battlefield, and leading the army, Celestial General, bring in the Celestial Sweep for AP area of effect damage, and Lord of Grand Cathay to make himself and surrounding units tankier. Alchemist with only Searing Doom to work through the bunched up Dwarf troops, and that's it for army builds. Now the Dwarfs are getting close, raising their axes, readying for a melee charge. Perhaps some of these Dragon crossbows will do some really good damage against these unshielded Dwarf infantry, while these Dwarf Warriors are taking heavy losses from the focus fire from Crane Guns. More Dragon crossbows are also moving in, readying to fire at the closest Dwarf unit. Now Searing Doom dropping onto the miners, but very nice dodge from Shogunnik here, evading most of that damage, but Iron Drakes behind them are heavily targeted by enemy firepower. The Crane Gunners are picking off these expensive missile infantry, but the Dwarfs are not going down without a fight. Now they're opening fire, doing massive damage to the Crane Guns. In the front line also, peasant long spears are getting blasted by all those explosives from the miners, and even the Jade Warriors, due to their reduced armor these days, they're taking more damage from the explosives as well. Now the Onyx Crowmen are diving into the backline, trying to silence the Crawlers and the Iron Drakes, preventing them to hunt down more of their Crane Guns, doing some really good damage on the charge. But here comes the Dragonback Slayers and the Elite Doom Seekers with their magic attack bypassing the physical resistance on the Onyx Crowmen. One of them are immediately annihilated. The other are still holding on because they're not directly charged by the Doom Seekers, but with the Doom Seekers closing in, they need to start running. On the far side there, Onyx Crowmen are closing in onto the Crawlers, while the Jade Warriors are pushing up, trying to push back the minor infantry while securing the backline here. Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, some of them managed to push through the front line, now trying to threaten the Celestial Dragon crossbows and Peasant long spears who are being routed away, but there will be more units turning around to fire at them. Searing Doom onto these bunched up Dwarf troops, so should be able to do some okay damage. Not the most amazing here, because Shogunnik managed to dodge it by force pathing the miners through the Jade Warrior front line. While over here, Jade Warrior is getting charged by the Doom Seekers and are getting annihilated on the charge yet again. Ugh, this is a lot of damage from the Doom Seekers with their anti-infantry armor piercing, excuse me for that mistake. And over here, the Dwarf Warriors unfortunately dropped their attacking orders onto the Celestial Dragon crossbows, and now being focus fire from the crossbows and the Crane Guns, they're completely destroyed, probably not going to come back anytime soon, while the other one's also intercepted by the Alchemist here and being shattered by the firepower from the Crane Gunners. At the back there's still some Onyx Crowmen roaming the battlefield, picking off the scattered Quarrelers, but perhaps the Iron Drakes and the return Quarrelers can focus fire them down. Dragon Mech Slayers guarding closely the Iron Drakes perhaps can provide some more melee protection, but another unit of Onyx Crowmen are coming in to silence the Iron Drakes. Floric at the back there managed to break off some Jade Warriors with the help of the Longbeards with great weapons. Now they are switching targets over to the Peasant Longspears. Should be able to do some really good damage over time using their elite melee stats to grind through the Cathay infantry. In the front line, Dwarf Warriors are still duking it out with the Jade Warriors. However, Doomseekers managed to break through the Jade Warriors, now moving on to the Cathay missiles. Unfortunately for them, they don't really have any protection against missiles, so they took a lot of damage from the overwatch of the Dragon crossbows and Crane guns, now being the prime target of focus fire, but still managed to get into melee combat. They're quite fast indeed, with 40 speed versus the 32 of the Celestial Dragon crossbow. And yeah, they're just chasing after the Celestial Dragon crossbows, especially with the new pursuit behavior. Once the Dragon crossbow starts pulling back, the Doomseekers will engage into the pursuit mode. So each individual model will seek out a different enemy to fight, and they are very efficiently hunting down the Celestial Dragon crossbows, cutting through half of their HP already. Now with the miners stopping the Dragon crossbows from continuing their run, the Doomseekers are getting a little bit more value before they themselves are completely annihilated, getting some really good work so far. Not quite enough to earn back their value, but really, really close. Now more miners and Dwarf Warriors with great weapons are pushing in, threatening the Cathay backline, but the Alchemist is here to intercept any enemy troops, while at the back there, Dragon Mech Slayer is still chasing after the Onyx Crowman, who is just moving all over the battlefield, really. So they're just spending quite a bit of time running around instead of doing damage. Now the last two Doomseekers trying to squeeze out a little bit more damage. Can they earn back? Nope. They are not able to earn back the last bit of their value, unfortunately. But still, very valiant effort from the elite Dowie Slayers. And the Celestial Dragon crossbows down to 33 models from full health and around actually a quarter of their HP. So very good work from the Doomseekers there. Dragon's Back Slayers finishing the last bit of the Onyx Crowman, and she'd be able to clean up these Jade Warriors as well, allowing the Iron Drakes to be secured and return to the front line shooting, going for a shootout against the Dragon crossbows. Though unfortunately they are getting shot by the Crane gun, so they'll be taking quite a bit of losses over time. But at the same time, somehow Floric, despite not being a primary melee fighter, he is still giving the Celestial General a pretty hard time. Longbeards are in the vicinity, providing a bit of infantry support, saturating in, and they are a very sturdy melee support. Of course, they are still being swarmed by Cathay Jade Warriors and being shot from all fronts by armor-piercing missiles, but still providing that body support, distracting the Celestial General from fighting Floric, while Floric having that Rune of Negation, boosting his tankiness, and also using his armor-piercing Rune Hammer to give the Celestial General a bit of a smackdown, doing some really good damage to the Celestial General over time. Though unfortunately, as soon as the Longbeards get routed by all those shooting, Floric needs to start pulling back, because he does not want to get tangled up with a dedicated melee fighter here. Especially the Lord of Grand Cathay melee defense boost ability to himself and surrounding units, making the Cathay units a lot more tanky in the vicinity. Though fortunately for Floric, he does magic damage, so the physical resistance doesn't matter to him. At the back there, the Alchemist has intercepted the Quarrelers, disrupting them from shooting, while the Dragon Mech Slayers are now catching up to the Celestial Dragon crossbows. They do have enough speed to catch up and can apply a slowing effect to drag down their targets, but it seems that they don't have the attack order onto the unit. So right now they're just standing still, taking a volley of crossbow bolts to the face from the further Dragon crossbows. A small mistake from the Dwarf player's micro. Now over here at the back, Iron Drakes shooting into the armored front line of the Jade Warriors, while the Celestial General is beating up Floric, equalizing the fight as he now have infantry support from his own troops. On the far side, Iron Drakes getting bombarded by Searing Doom. Oh, and here comes the Crane Gunners, who ran out of ammo, charging into melee against the Quarrelers, using a bit of a shield bump. It's not even a shield bash, it's just a little bump. Oh, and they have little swords to poke at the enemy units. Very interesting. I do like this attention to detail here, and yeah, the person at the back doesn't do anything other than just holding the gun, really. It's just the person in front poking away with the sword. So yeah, they are slowly grinding through the crawlers with their meager melee stats. The crawlers, despite their 80 armor and better melee stats, because they're so depleted, while the crane gunners are still very much healthy, getting the charge as well, the crawlers are actually losing out on this melee fight. Thoric, though, somehow managed to beat back the Celestial General now. Celestial General trying to run away, putting in a Celestial Sweep. Not that it does anything against Thoric, but instead he is now more vulnerable to Thoric's attack from behind. Worst thing is he does not have attack orders on Thoric, so he's just taking free hits from Thoric. And I believe this might be a little bit of a bug, because if a unit gets attacked, normally he would turn around and fight. Oh, yep, here goes. He turned around and bashed Thoric in the face, but unfortunately he just took a little bit too much damage, just because he took his sweet time before turning around to face Thoric. Now, after taking all that damage, the Cathay Lord is being routed and chased off. And Thoric was able to win out against this fight. This might actually lose Cathay the game. Not that they are definitely winning. It is still quite even outside of the Celestial General. But still, there's a lot of stuff for the Cathay to work through here. And I don't know if they have what it takes. Like, there's still the Unbreakable Dragonback Slayers, and the Jade Warriors are pretty much the only thing left to take them down. Oh, perhaps they can shoot them with the Celestial Dragon crossbows, but they are running low on ammo, so I am not sure. But over here, Thoric Ironbrow chasing after the Celestial General. And there's nothing from Cathay to save their Liege Lord. And things are looking quite grim for Cathay as the Dwarfs are pulling ahead on balance of power. Jade Warriors trying desperately to catch up to Thoric Ironbrow, and the Celestial Dragon crossbows are shooting at Thoric. But Thoric just boosting his own damage resistance up with the Rune of Negation, and then on top of that, the 15% missile resistance, keeping himself alive with his meager HP. So getting some buffs from his own abilities and resistances, and being a Footlord having a small hitbox, that allowed him to survive the Dragon crossbow fire, and the Celestial General will be pushed all the way over to the white line. That leaves pretty much just the Celestial Dragon crossbows, who are now being tied down by the Dragonback Slayers and the Jade Warriors to carry the game for Grand Cathay. But Grand Cathay, can they work through all these elite Dragonback Slayers who are unbreakable, and unlike the Cathay Peasant, will be fighting to their death? Of course, Slayers lacking armor are taking noticeable damage over time from the Grand Cathay forces, but they are also grinding through what remains of the Cathay army. At this point, the Celestial General has been chased off the map by Thoric, causing massive leadership issues to the Grand Cathay army, especially most of their units are extremely depleted. Shogunnic will be taking the first win with Thoric and his Slayers clutching the win. GG to both players for the first battle. We'll be moving on to the second battle soon, but before that, let's have a look at the army performances. Buena Roja, the Grand Cathay player, did some really good damage with the AP missiles, but unfortunately the Grand Cathay frontline was not able to hold long enough in front of the combined assault of Dwarf melee units and explosive charges, and that allowed the Dwarf infantry to break through and compromise the missile back line. Losing the Celestial General in the late game was also a very key loss, as they were not able to hold up the leadership against the Unbreakable Dragonback Slayers, allowing the Slayers to carry the late game. The Doomseekers also did quite well for the Dwarves here, and the Iron Drakes did surprisingly well against the Grand Cathay army despite the lack of large targets. Perhaps their new role is to counter enemy weapons teams, and Thoric did alright, while the rest of the Dwarf melee push was really effective in grinding through the Jade Warriors and then pressuring the Crane Guns and Celestial Dragon crossbows in the backline. Now, without further ado, let's hop into the next battle. This battle is a classic rush versus box, where the Dark Elves here, played by Shogunnic, going for a very aggressive army. A front line of full anti-infantry power, including Sisters of Slaughter, Witch Elves, and Black Ark Corsairs. They're flanked by some Core Knights and Dark Riders protecting the sides, while in the skies some Crows of Cain for additional flying mobility. At the back, the Siren of Red Ruin, Regiment of Renowned Bloodwreck Medusa, providing that missile support. Leading the army would be a Supreme Sorceress of Soul Stealer on her Black Dragon, very classic combination, while for the Empire of Buena Roja, a frontline, well, not really frontline, but mobility force of Empire Knights sallying forth, going for a cheeky charge against the lightly armored Witch Elves, doing massive impact damage due to their loose formation, the fact that they're not braced, and the charge bonus of Empire Knights. Now, the Witch Elves are trying to catch up and counter punch, but it seems that they only managed to do some minor damage to the Empire Knights, but with the Core Knights coming in, the Empire Knights need to retreat lest they risk getting tied down in sustained combat against anti-large armor-piercing entities. For the rest of the Empire, build a box of state troops, spears and swords and halberds protecting hotline rifles and great cannons supported by a Jade Wizard. In the leadership department, we have Karl Franz not on a Dove Claw, but just on his Pegasus mount. Having less mass and slightly less damage output, he is less effective in fighting against enemy blobs, but he still have his items and abilities to lend support to his troops. Raglan Runefang help the Empire Knights do a little bit more damage to their foes, while in the front line, Witch Elves are closing in, still having half health. That is probably more than enough for them to wreck the state troops, as they are now charging into Swordsmen, activating Witch Brew for additional weapon damage and melee attack. Great Cannons are shut down for now, with the Crows of Cain diving down onto their artillery crew. Halberdiers are here to help, but it seems that they are not actually pushing into the Crows of Cain, and Crows of Cain are still able to get to some of the Great Cannon crew. And at the same time, just in a matter of seconds, the Witch Brew plus the Witch Elves melee stats was able to just break through, cutting apart all those swordsman defenses, and now they're intruding into the back line of the Empire box. The state troops, reserves, the halberdiers, spears all needs to start pushing into the front line here, trying desperately to stop the Witch Elves and Sisters of Slaughter from pushing into the missile troops, but one of the Hogline long rifles are now compromised by the Crows of Cain, while the far side here, Empire Knights are losing out against Dark Riders and Cold One Knights, plus the Sisters of Slaughter supporting against the mobility fight. They are actually losing pretty badly, with Core Knights readying to intercept them in a perfect position. While over here, Hawkland long rifles are retreating away from the front line, with the spears and some Empire Knights pinning down the Dark Riders, Witch Elves and Sisters of Slaughter, preventing them from pushing against the Hawkland long rifles. These Sisters of Slaughter are desperately trying to push through the blob of state troops, trying to get to the Hawkland long rifles, but the majority of their troops are still stuck in a bunch of spears, so they are unable to do so. Halberdiers are holding the line, finally grinding down the Witch Elves and beating back the Crows of Cain, but here comes the Supreme Sorceress and her Black Dragon. Hogline long rifles are shooting in and are doing some pretty nice damage over time. Not the most burst damage, but it really adds up. Actually, you know what? The damage is building up rather fast, and now the Supreme Sorceress is on the verge of routing. In return, the two Koan Knights are almost finishing the two Empire Knights. While over here, Karl Franz engaging against Siren of Red Ruin. He's actually losing in this battle. Karl Franz on a Pegasus have less HP than the Siren of Red Ruin, and the Siren being boosted up by Murderous Prowess, having 70 melee attack, combined with her anti-large armor piercing and the Regiment of Renown status with extra melee stats and leadership, she is more than capable of soloing Franz in melee combat. Even activating Galmaras and Raglan Runefang were not enough to turn this fight around for Franz. Good news for the Empire though, the Sorceress seems to be routed off by the Hogline long rifles, being pushed off the map actually rather close to the white line, but same goes for Karl Franz now, being subjected to the Siren of Red Ruin eye lasers. He is routed off, and being so close to white line and with Crows of Cain closing in, there is little hope for the Empire leadership to regroup and return. Jade Wizard also being pushed off by the Dark Riders. Now it is pretty much just the state troops left for the Empire. The eye lasers of the Siren of the Red Ruin is probably enough to finish off all these Empire infantry. With Karl Franz getting escorted off the map, the leadership of the Empire state troops takes a heavy hit. Balance of power tilts even more in the Dark Elves' favor. Army losses kicks in, and that shall be another victory for Shogunnik, securing his best of 3 victory. GG to both players, and congrats to Shogunnik for the win. This battle, unlike the first one, was pretty much one-sided in favor of Shogunnik here, as his army was a perfect counter to the Empire box. Boina Roja probably expecting more of a regular Dark Elf build with Bleak Swords, Stress Spears in the front line, coupled with a ton of Code 1 cavalry, but instead Shogunnik went all in on the aggressive infantry rush here. Sisters of Slaughter, Witch Elves, they just ran over the Empire defenses, cutting down all the state troops with deadly efficiency, and the Empire missiles were not able to do the damage they need to carry the game. Also, Karl Franz unexpectedly losing against the Blood-Wrecked Medusa definitely was a painful loss to the Empire. Anyways, that's it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoyed this multiplayer action. If you want to catch up on more tournament action, including more Warpstone Cup best of 3s, I'll be covering more of those, so be sure to subscribe to my channel and keep an eye out for new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Itch, signing out.